Alabama's scrimmage Saturday was a rousing success, which means the real success was at quarterback.
You are Locked On Bama, your daily podcast on the Alabama Crimson Tide, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hey, everybody. Welcome back into Locked On Bama, AHSA's radio network. Luke Robinson, that's me, and Bama Online's Jimmy Stein, that's him. This episode is brought to you by FanDuel, and we welcome all you everydayers. We welcome all you newbies, and thank you for making us your first listen every single day. We are your team every day, of course, as you know. Jimmy, Alabama's scrimmage on Saturday was a success by all accounts. Now, you can say any scrimmage is a success. If it's, 3-0, you say, well, the defense is looking awesome. But you can tell what's going down. And from all reports, and these are from some that we know and people we trust, Jalen Milroe and his confidence were on full display. He had really nice passes, one to Ryan Williams. This is a Ryan Williams podcast, of course. I'm not sure who threw the one. It's been a couple of days now. I'm not sure who threw the one. It looked like one was thrown to Jam Miller for a touchdown. I don't think that was him, though. Regardless,
it might have been tough.
Like a 40-yard touchdown run. It just seemed like this is really his team. And you and I said this on the last podcast. There's still a faction of Alabama fans out there. I get it from a national perspective, where some people still doubt Jalen Milroe to a degree because they still remember, hey, he was benched for South Florida. Hey, 2 years ago, he had a rough game against Texas A&M. He is as much known for 4 touchdowns against LSU rushing as he is for anything else. So I get it. At the same time, this is his team. Like it or leave it, whatever you want to do. This is Jalen Milroe's squad, and it's good. Alabama's going to ride or die with Jalen Milroe.
Yeah, this is his team. He's QB1. There was never a doubt. Kalen DeBoer's been referring to Jalen Milroe as the quarterback of this football team since the spring. There was never any hint of controversy. Now, the good news is, Ty Simpson's been playing really well. I mean, Ty looks good. Ty looked good this spring. I think Ty's looked really good this fall. Hopefully that's just really good news for 2025 and that Milroe has the sort of year that we think he's going to have. Heard a lot of things about the scrimmage, and we'll talk about the open practice shortly, but I'm kind of combining the two. But I like the description.
Just go ahead and combine them. Just say what you want to. I mean, because it really sort of is a combination anyway.
Yeah, in terms of what we heard and then what I was able to see today at the open practice. I've been to 6 practices, but only a portion of it today. I got to see the entire 2-hour practice. I think, you used the right word, Luke, confidence. Jalen Milroe's a different kid because you can tell from the confidence. I mean, it's just easy to see the way he carries himself, the way he's delivering the football. This is just a very confident, experienced veteran kid. There's a gigantic difference between the way he looks and Ty looks 1 year later than they did a year ago, when Jalen was frankly struggling to win the job and Ty was a really young quarterback as a redshirt freshman. They've just done a lot this past year. I think some of it's the new offense and the new coaching. But Jalen Milroe, by all accounts, did really well in the scrimmage. I even talked to 2 different people who I think it's fair to say are Milroe doubters who came away really impressed by Jalen. And these were Milroe kind of doubters, and they were impressed by what they saw in the scrimmage. I, of course, didn't get to see a single shred of the scrimmage except what Alabama released on video. But today, pretty impressed by Milroe. Ty looked like a solid QB2, if not ready to play himself. And then the deep depth, Dylan Lonergan and Austin Mack look pretty good. I don't think either one of them are ready to be the quarterback at Alabama. But hey, they're number 3 and 4. They don't need to be ready. They need to be ready next year, and there's no reason to think they won't be. They look fine. I think both need to work a little bit on the speed of the game, which is the most typical thing young quarterbacks, even Milroe, struggled with as a very young quarterback, and Ty was struggling a year ago. I mean, it's just everything has to be done quicker, better, faster. at this level, and that's what they're working
Is any
on.
of that, Jimmy, a product of they're not playing with guys who may not be up to their speed? I use that. I'm saying that if they're playing with mostly third and fourth team guys, and they are actually more like second string themselves, are the other guys just not fast enough for them? I'm definitely curious. This is not me making a definitive statement. I am definitely curious.
No, I think it's just simply that everything. It's kind of like maybe the best analogy is getting off a punt. You know, there's a lot of good punters out there that if you throw them the football and they hold it in their hand and they take 2, 3, or 4 steps and they really whack the ball, you're like, wow, that guy can punt the heck out of it. But that doesn't work in the SEC. The ball has to be snapped to the punter, and the punter's got to get rid of it. You got to go. The game moves too fast. You got to punt it. You don't have time to sit there, examine the ball, take 4 steps and punt it. You got to take the snap, take your 2 steps, and the ball's got to be out. That same thing, the quarterback. It just everything has to move faster because the game is moving faster. The defense is getting to you. The DBs can make up ground on the receiver. The pass rush is getting to you. Everything just has to be sped up. And it's very difficult to maintain your accuracy when you're playing faster and the decisions are coming faster. But this is typical. This isn't a knock on Dylan or Austin. That's typical of every quarterback that's making the transition from high school football to college football. It's played faster. Those that get to play in the NFL, they'll have another adjustment to make because guess what? The NFL, it goes even faster. So the college quarterbacks that we're seeing now in these NFL preseason games and NFL training camps, they're learning to play NFL fast. And that's all. That's just really the best way to describe it. I think Dylan and Austin are both going to be good players. I think they're just where Ty was a year ago and where Jalen Milroe was a year and a half ago or 2 years ago. They're just redshirt freshmen. They're young. They're young players. They'll both be fine. Especially I like Lonergan, and I think I will like Austin Mack. His raw tools are great. He's just even younger than Lonergan. Let's remember, age-wise, Austin Mack should be a true freshman this fall because he was a reclass guy like Ryan. And when do we get to talk about Ryan? This is a Ryan Williams podcast.
We're going to talk about him right in this next segment. It would have been an awesome segue, except I did want to say one other thing. You mentioned that you go from high school to the SEC and the speed so much different. Shoot, take it another level. You go from Washington, and this is no cut on the Washington Huskies. They played for the national championship last year. But if you're Austin Mack and you go to Washington, then you come to Alabama. Alabama's roster is better than Washington. I don't think I'm saying anything insulting to Washington.
That's a great point. It's a collection of DBs. He ain't seen a collection of DBs like Alabama's got. Washington had a couple. Alabama's got
they had amazing wide receivers. And what Washington did last year was amazing. I'm not trying to cut on them. I'm just saying, and the reason I say that, and then you go to the SEC to the NFL is crazy. What's funny is earlier today I saw a YouTube short with an interview with Derrick Henry. And the interviewer asked him, hey, what was it like going from SEC to the NFL? He said, it's night and day. He said, but going from high school to SEC was night and day. And he said, I'll tell you this, the SEC is probably night and day from everybody else. Now I'm paraphrasing all this, but one of the other guys that was there that was interviewing him said, hey, wait a minute, I'm a Big Ten guy. And he said, well, look, I can't really speak to the Big Ten much. We didn't play them much. And he goes, well, I remember you played Michigan State. And Derrick Henry said, yeah, we beat them 38-0. And the guy goes, oh, yeah. So it's just kind of funny. By the way, I also went to an NFL game this weekend, an NFL preseason game. My son, he's become a Tampa Bay fan. I got one son that's an Eagles fan, one son that's a Tampa Bay fan. No idea why, but he just likes Tampa Bay. So he lives in Ohio. I took him to the Cincinnati-Tampa game this weekend. Jermaine Burton in the fourth quarter did a lot of damage. He had over 80 yards receiving, had a big touchdown that put Cincinnati in the lead. Caught another big catch that probably would have tied the game if Cincinnati hadn't gone for it because it's preseason. But Tampa Bay ended up winning, and it was so funny because my son, I also went up there to see him play his first football game ever. And he went up there to play his first football game ever. And, he's got some work to do, but he's going to be fine. And at the end of the preseason game, he said, he was sitting on the edge of his seat, Jimmy. I said, Walker, this is preseason. He goes, I know, Dad. He was like, I know. But I've seen you. with Alabama games, so don't say anything to me. I said, touche. All right, when we come back,
monkey see, monkey do moment.
Yeah, that is right. We're going to talk a little Ryan Williams right after this. And if somebody's auditing this, I know I'm not supposed to say right after this, but they know. I want to talk Ryan Williams so much, sometimes I get confused. But something that shouldn't confuse you is eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience, the formula for winning championships, is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and much more. Whether you're into speed, power, style, eBay Motors got you covered with over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die. You'll always find exactly what you're looking for, of course. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, you ain't burning cash. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home some huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only, exclusions do apply. And eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. I also want to remind everybody to check out Locked On College Football. My boy Spencer McLaughlin gets you ready every single podcast. He does an amazing job with Locked On College Football. It's a part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right. So it is a Ryan Williams podcast, and
has been for
nothing got me more ready for football season than hearing Ryan Williams caught a 50-yard touchdown from Jalen Milroe. And it was like I had to pull over and hold back tears. And look, I understand that we shouldn't be putting that much pressure on him. Speaking of people that have reclassified, Ryan Williams is supposed to be going into his senior year, thinking about Saraland playing whoever they play game one. He's supposed to be doing all that. Instead, he's thinking about Alabama facing Western Kentucky. And it's but he's special, man. He's special. And on top of that, I'm going to give you the floor here. There's another special freshman out there at wide receiver, and we haven't been giving him enough love. We should be. And that's Caleb Odom. Caleb Odom made one of those unbelievable one-handed catches. And I'm not trying to go overboard here. I saw a tweet from a guy that does an Auburn podcast, not Locked On Auburn, but he does another Auburn podcast. And it was from catch by Malcolm Simmons at the Auburn scrimmage this weekend. And Malcolm Simmons went to my hometown high school in Benjamin Russell. And I'm pulling for Malcolm. I want Malcolm to do well. I really do. He's a good kid. And he did make an unbelievable catch in that scrimmage. And the podcaster sent that video with a tweet that said, boy, in a couple of years, Auburn's receiver room could look like 2019 LSU. And that's when I said, we got to all draw the line at putting these unreasonable expectations on people. And I think it's one thing to say that this is a Ryan Williams podcast with our little tiny podcast here. It's another thing to say Ryan Williams is going to be the best receiver in the country. I think he might be, but I ain't ready to say that. That being said, I love our two freshman receivers in Ryan Williams and Caleb Odom.
Yeah, I think any true freshman that plays with the first team in the SEC and at Alabama, an elite program that's trying to win a national championship, and you've got a true freshman that has earned his way onto or with the first team, that's just impressive as heck. And both Ryan Williams and Caleb Odom, I think, will play with the first team. And I mean by that, I don't necessarily mean starting, hey, first snap, they're out there. But I mean playing with the ones while the game is undecided in the first and second quarter. You're going to see number 2 and number 18. That's Ryan 2 and Caleb Odom 18. They're both going to be out there. But this is really a Ryan Williams show, as it has been since he recommitted to Alabama back in January. And I'm tired of – this is what I'm doing. I'm going to pick my words carefully here, but I'm tired of sort of walking on eggshells about this. Like Luke said, you don't want to put crazy expectations on a kid that's as young as he is. He's 17. He's not even 18. Ryan Williams, 17 years old. And like Luke said, he's supposed to be getting ready to play Jackson High School in the opener. Instead, he's playing Western Kentucky University, routinely putting players in the NFL, that Western Kentucky. But look, Ryan, I think it's not official, but Ryan is a first-team player. He is this is what I'll settle on, Luke. He's already one of the best receivers on this team. And if I had to rank them today, I'll say he's fourth. But
with a bullet.
But he ain't gonna be fourth long.
Yeah.
He's fourth and ascending. That's where he is.
That is an incredibly reasonable take.
It's nuts, frankly. But what I will say is by the end of the year to go further, I'm now getting Luke. I will be shocked if he's not top 2 by November.
Agreed.
And that's how good he is. He's just a special kid. Now, we've had a ton of these guys during the Saban era. He's not the first. He's more like the 101st since the Saban era started.
In fact, I'm glad you brought that up. I was hoping you wouldn't, because I was going to make this point. You know, one thing we get so excited about, you get excited about all these players coming. Usually a wide receiver, it feels like, at least for most of my lifetime as a freshman, they didn't make as much of a mark as some others. Like, again, as a traditionalist college football guy, quarterbacks and wide receivers usually took a little more time. A running back could usually come in and do something, because it's basically give me the ball and let me make something happen, right? But think about this, for anybody worried about having 2 true freshmen make as big of a mark as we need them to. I think we're going to need Odom and Williams to go as far as Alabama needs to go to win a championship. But Julio Jones, essentially helped lead Alabama to an undefeated season. They lose to Tim Tebow in a classic SEC championship game, or they probably win the national championship. Amari Cooper was incredible, especially down the stretch, and he had 2 touchdowns against Notre Dame in the national championship game. Calvin Ridley was amazing as a freshman. Now, it should be noted, Ridley's the opposite of Ryan Williams. Ridley was 20 when he was here as a freshman.
I was going to say 21, but he was certainly 20. He was certainly 21,
but I think he was 20 when he got here.
Yeah, we'll say 20, but if we're wrong, he was 21.
Yeah, it's not like we're wrong on the other way. Yeah, you're right.
Right. So he was at least 20 as a true freshman. And then that doesn't make what he did any less.
No, it doesn't take anything away from it. But and I hate it for him, because it shortens his NFL career, but he's with the Titans now, and I think he played really well the other night. But it was just odd, because I saw a story on him the other day, and again on a YouTube short. I get in these rabbit holes, and it talked about his being 20, and that he could only play 2 games as a senior in high school, and I forgot that. And a lot of people thought they may be overranking him because he didn't get to play much, but if anything, they're underranked him. Then, of course, there was the trio of Ruggs, Judy, and Devontae Smith. But they didn't, they had their moments, but it wasn't until
Judy was pretty good quick, I thought.
Judy was good.
Was good quick.
And Ruggs had like 7 straight catches for touchdowns. His first 7 catches or something were touchdowns. And Devontae Smith, of course, had the game winner against Mississippi State. But it wasn't until the national championship, when Tua comes in, that they all just explode, right? It was the second half of that game. And then I would say Waddle as a freshman. He had that huge touchdown catch from Tua against Georgia in the 2008 SEC title game. Waddle was an amazing freshman. But I'm going to tell you, I feel like Ryan Williams can have, and Caleb Odom to some degree, have the same kind of freshman year that these guys have.
Ryan belongs in that group. That's all. He belongs in that group, which is saying, look what that's saying. Every player Luke just went over, they were all first-round picks, I think. No worse than second-round picks. All of them.
Boy, I think all of them were first-round picks. Wait a minute. Yeah, Devontae went first-round. Ruggs, Judy, Calvin, Amari, Julio, Waddle. Yeah, they all went first-round.
Yeah, I think Ryan is in that category of player. He's just really special. I don't want to make it out to be he's the best. I'm just saying Saban signed so many 5-star freaks at all the positions. I'm just saying Ryan belongs on that list. I think he's that good. And I could talk about the catches, which are impressive, and I could talk about the speed and in and out of bursts. I'm just impressed with this, Luke. He never looks confused. I've been to 6 practices, now a full practice. He's never once not known what to do. He's never once it appeared ran the wrong route.
He's got good football intuition.
That's exactly right. He has a feel for this game.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Now, I did see one. Hey, but if you want to say how invincible he is, just bringing up one play today. I said, I'm going to watch Ryan on this play. He's playing with the ones. They did some 11 on, no, this was 7 on 7. They were doing first team today, open practice. They were doing ones versus ones, 7 on 7. So no linemen on the field, just the quarterbacks, backs and receivers against DBs and linebackers. And Ryan was with the ones and Milroe was a quarterback. And I'm like, I'm going to watch Ryan on this play. And thankfully they targeted him and threw him the ball because I wasn't watching anything else but Ryan. He runs a great, I'd say a 10-yard comeback route where he runs 10 yards, tries to fool the DB into thinking he's going deeper, but then he comes back to the quarterback for the catch. He runs a great route. And Milroe put it right on the numbers, right on his 2, right into his hands. But in flashes, Zabian Brown, who gets a hand on the ball and knocks it down. And Zabian's another true freshman out there. But just when I was about to go, hey, Ryan just has a great route. Milroe puts it on the money, but here's another star freshman, number 2 on defense, Zabian, who's doing it with a little club on his hand, by the way, because he's a little banged up. That was spectacular. But I use that as an example. I'm kind of bragging on Ryan there. He knows what to do and looks really comfortable playing with the ones. Today, they shook up the receiving core a little bit. I think some of it had to do with some minor nagging injuries or bumps and bruises they got from the scrimmage. But today, the first team wide receivers were Ryan, Cole Adams, and Emmanuel Henderson.
Wow.
Law and Prentice did play, but they were with the second group. But I use the word second group lightly because wide receivers, not like the other positions, more than 3 play with the first team. But the starters today were Ryan, Cole, and Emmanuel Henderson. My understanding is those 3 are traditionally the 2s, with the 1s being Prentice, Law, and Jeremy Bernard.
I don't want to tell everybody about FanDuel. Love me some FanDuel. You love FanDuel. We all love FanDuel. It's awesome. And it's just fantastic. You need to go check it out because you love sports. We all love sports, and you don't ever want them to stop. Sports have slowed just for a minute with the Olympics and whatever, but it's about to kick up like you wouldn't believe with NFL and college football coming back in full force. And before you know it, it'll be college basketball season again too, baby. So be ready with FanDuel because then all you have to do is open up the app and dream up any bet you want, and you're ready to rock with FanDuel. This summer, FanDuel is hooking up all customers with a boost or a bonus daily. That's right. There's something for everybody every day all summer long. So head on over to FanDuel and start making the most of what's left of your summer. FanDuel is an official sportsbook partner of Major League Baseball. And I've already told you about Locked On College football, but you need to go check it out. Spencer McLaughlin does it all, man. Jimmy and I have both been guests there. Appreciate that dude so much. He gets down with it. I dig it. We've been talking about early entrance, right? And I guess in Calvin Ridley's case, it was like the opposite of that. But here's the thing. Didn't LT Overton also early entry into Texas A&M?
Sure did. He was a reclass at A&M, so he should be a true sophomore this fall, not a true junior.
Well, my point is this. I thought it was an interesting report from your buddy Tim Watts that mentioned, hey, one guy that sort of stood out to him was LTO. Remember, he was out the very first of fall practice, right? He wasn't in there very much. At the
first couple days. He was actually sick.
He was sick, so we kind of lose sight of him, right? Because you're so excited about everybody else, all these new faces. Well, he comes in and he makes a move, and I thought it was interesting the thing that he said. He said, man, he looks like he's really matured. And I was like, yeah, I like the way people mature from being a college freshman to being a college sophomore. And that is exactly what it feels like he should have been doing. Even though you go to college, Ryan Williams going to college a year early, and we think Ryan Williams is a special talent. We think he's a future first-round pick potentially. We think he's going to do all these fantastic things. We mentioned it with all these other great wide receivers. But he's going to have some boneheaded moments. I'm 100% sure of that.
Oh, yeah.
And mostly just because he's not as old as some of these other dudes. Freshmen do anyway, a guy that should be a senior in high school is definitely going to do it. So I think of LT Overton as like, even though he didn't redshirt that first year, that should have been like a redshirt year for him. Right. And so he's just hitting his stride. So I shouldn't be so shocked that this guy who at one time was the number one player in his class is now turning it on.
Yeah, he, by all accounts, and Tim reported this on the BOL board. I also had sources that indicated LT Overton had a really nice scrimmage, even going head up with Caden Proctor. LT had a lot of wins, so that's interesting. Like Luke just said, hey, I'll be honest, I'm sure we don't have too many Texas A&M fans that listen, but I think Texas A&M just totally screwed that kid up. I mean, first of all, he's not Ryan Williams reclassifying, playing wide receiver out way away from the ball and just matching up with corners. This kid was playing at the line of scrimmage as a 12th grader. Worse, A&M played him in a stand-up linebacker position. And this is a kid born to play with a hand on the ground, which is just the best way to describe it. This is a lineman that was born to play in a three-point stance. A&M has this guy standing up, dropping. They just had him in the wrong position. He should have redshirted because he was a reclass. They did not. So he played as a true freshman in the wrong spot. Now we're getting him after 2 years at A&M, where I think they were screwing him up. I'm just being honest.
And even worse, their program was on unstable ground. So it's like, here's a guy who's playing out of position. He's should be a senior or should be a college freshman when he's a college freshman and then college sophomore, and the leadership isn't there. So, I mean, there's a lot of things wrong with what happened to him. And so now he comes here, and granted, he has a new coach. Alabama's got a new system and all this, but I would say Kalen DeBoer's on pretty stable ground, and Alabama program is certainly more stable than A&M's right this minute. So I feel like, he's walking into a much better place for him. And here's another thing. Didn't his dad go to Alabama or was an Alabama fan? There was some Alabama connection where
his dad worked at Alabama. His dad worked at Alabama in the athletic department, but his dad's worked in several athletic departments, and I believe now maybe the AD at Kennesaw State or is a high-ranking Kennesaw State athletic director guy. But yeah, his dad.
Petway's the basketball coach?
Something like that. Okay. Not exactly sure, but something like that. Yeah. But Alabama's got two guys, Luke, on defense that are transfers that I think we're underrating because they came from unstable, bad situations for themselves and have now found themselves in a better situation. LT Overton at Bandit and Damani Jackson at cornerback. I think both of these guys are going to be monstrously improved over what they were a year ago at A&M and USC for so many reasons. And I think I mentioned this on the show the other day about Damani, but it's worth mentioning again about his career. Yes, he did struggle at times last year as a young sophomore cornerback starting at USC. It was a struggle for him, didn't always play great. Well, the year before that, he was a true freshman, so he didn't play that much. The year before that, he was a senior at Mater Dei, and he had a season-ending injury in game one. He only played half a game his entire senior year. The year before that, his junior year, when he became a big five-star, he wasn't even playing in games. That's the COVID year, and he's playing in California, which had basically a complete shutdown. Damani hasn't really played a lot of football since the 10th grade. And then at Southern Cal last year, he struggled. Well, no, I can't say the word I wanted to say. I'd be in trouble. But yeah, he struggled. Of course he did. And but we're about to see an experienced college football player now, Damani, better coaching, better team, better defense. And I think LT Overton, sort of a similar situation because of that reclass. This is more like a sophomore year for him. This is more like a sophomore year for Damani. They're going to be two of Alabama's better defenders, which is a crazy thing to say based on how both played a year ago.
Wow, that is interesting. It feels like COVID was a million years ago now, right? And that's interesting that he was affected by that so much. Yeah, if you were playing in California, I mean, he probably just had to be in a glass box, hermetically sealed glass box.
That was his junior season at Mater Dei, was the COVID year. And that's the year that you announce your presence nationally when you're a prospect like Damani. He just hasn't played a lot of football. It's kind of crazy.
All right. I'm going to end the show with a story, little anecdote about my father. Every now and again, I tell some
They're good.
some Ricky Robinson stories, and he told
He's
me
hit every time.
I hadn't heard this one before, but he told me about. We were talking. Remember, I told you famously about the story where we had two neighbors. One set just moved in, and the other neighbor decided, hey, I'm going to bring them a casserole. She brings them a casserole, walks down the street with the oven mitts, things still piping hot, knocks on the door, says, just want to welcome your neighborhood. Here's a casserole. The guy goes, we don't eat casseroles, and shut the door. And so she had to do the walk of shame back with the casserole, right? So, because a casserole is like a Southern pineapple, right? It's like our universal symbol of welcome. Well, somebody moved in across the lake from my parents years and years and years ago. And my mom just said, I don't think I like them. I don't like them very much. I just don't think I like them. And Dad was like, what is wrong with you? Why? You hadn't even met them. You're just wrong. He goes, I'm going to take them a bottle of wine. She goes, don't do it. I just got a bad feeling about them. He said, I'm taking them a bottle of wine. You just sit here. So he drives over across the lake. He sees the guy. My mom's on her deck. She can see, him out there working in the yard, the guy that Dad's going to meet out there working in the yard. So Dad comes over there and she sees Dad pull into the driveway and come out with a bottle of wine. Dad goes, hey, I just wanted to welcome you to the neighborhood. And Dad said, I swear that guy stood there and put his rake on his, under his hands and his chin on and said, me and my wife, we don't drink. And Dad said, he fought every urge to say, well, hang on a second, I'll be back with a 32-ounce Coca-Cola. And instead, he just said, he said, that's fine. He said, I'm going to take the high road. He said, no problem, sir. And so he said, I started walking back to his car, and the guy's dog bit him. And Mom was on the deck across the lake watching all this go on. And Dad looked over and she was like fist pumping, like, oh, I told you. I got you. I thought that was so funny. I was like, how many bad, for all this Southern hospitality we get noted for, it sure do seem like we got some rude ones. So anyway.
That whole story made me hungry for a casserole.
Even like green bean casserole? All right, that's going to do it for today's podcast. We'll be back tomorrow with a whole lot more. And until then, roll tide, everybody.
Roll tide.